Talking Hats.
I'm Monty Squiggles.
And I'm Old Man Wolfy. And this is my long time, holy shit, I've known this man for 3 decades now. This is my buddy Gary. Gary Muttley.
What's up?
And we're going to discuss, fandom from an older man's perspective. And God knows.
Back in the day when dinosaurs ruled the world.
When he was 2 years old.
Yes, I was 2 when these two met.
Yeah.
Get off my lawn.
Well, once upon a time, Muttley and I went to high school together, and actually, no, you didn't go to Lunacon until the second Lunacon because you weren't part of the crew.
I was either the second or third.
Well, I want to say second because, Liz and I were we completely went evangelical on everybody, and we're like zealots, like whipping people into a frenzy to go.
Which
I was a little younger, so that was part of it.
Yeah, that was part of the.
But I think by the time I started going, there was already a history there, and you guys had gone once or twice, and was hearing about it, and that's how me and a couple of my friends that were in my grade started going also.
Right. And those first couple of convention experiences, all the dramas that happened, all the ridiculous states of fandom at the time, and
all of the trouble we got into.
Oh, Jesus. But the other thing is that, for years, ever since those days, he and I have always had, we can spend long hours pontificating on the nature of the failure of Lunacon and other conventions.
Which we will get to.
Oh, yeah. We're definitely, that's still on the agenda.
The deep dive into the con insanity that is the many stories I've heard from this one about Lunacon.
It's a big topic of discussion.
That will be probably a whole episode by itself.
But one of the things that we've been always talking about is the fact of the weird generational issues in fandom, where fandom, the people who are older and kind of can't understand that, the world moves on and kind of moves up.
They're sci-fi fans.
Yes, sci-fi fans who are terrified of
can't understand change.
Doesn't that make the least amount of sense?
Yeah, you could say that.
But the thing is, we did the Lunacon, we did the creation conventions, which were hilarious because it was just such a different experience.
Well, we should also mention that this goes back to the deep dark ages before the internet.
Mm-hmm. Internet was not a thing.
You may have heard about those times.
The dark times.
Once upon a time.
And, you had, fanzines. There's something we've never discussed on the show yet. Fanzines.
I've only heard about them. I've never actually seen them.
And they still kind of exist.
They do to a certain point. They kind of evolved into, bulletin boards and fan web pages. So that outlet is still there.
There was that whole progression
but it's
of
much
it.
different.
I never dealt with fanzines really just when it came to sci-fi. Dealing with punk rock and hardcore music, there's still fanzines around, and those were always a big part of it. But with science fiction, I never really got much into that world. Mm-hmm. But that may have just been the way I was, not necessarily a reflection on.
Why on earth would you want to? All you'd be doing is spending time in people's basements, with all of every single nerd stereotype that exists today. Was real. They don't come. None of the nerd stereotypes, none of the hieroglyphs. These things did not come from a vacuum. Yes, they are.
Are they completely true? Not necessarily. Did something exist to inspire them? Oh, hell yes.
They may not be as widely. They may not be as widely practiced as people think, but there are definitely every stereotype you hear. We've probably run into a few people like that.
I've been unfortunate. The only one I've run into is the robot chicken nerd. Yeah,
and the thing is, he is a good encapsulation of a lot of what's wrong with fandom. He exists. He exists all over the place. All over the place.
There's a reason he's a fixture on that show.
And then there's we had a surprising abundance of the actually, guys, we had a lot of those.
The actuallys.
Oh yeah.
Comic book guy types.
Yep. Yes, that was the thing, but goodness gracious, we come from the era of nerddom when we used to it was considered a rogue thing to play, Gamma World and
before school.
See,
so what was it like back then being a nerd? I've mentioned previously in other episodes where in like the 80s to early 90s, which is where I started but not where all of my time was, being a nerd was akin to being a social pariah. What was it like in the 70s though?
I'll give you a perspective on it in the 80s, like when we were in high school and stuff like that, because there's a weird parallel when it comes to something like, different genres, different cliques type of things, because there's a real parallel between that and like people that listen to like heavy metal music, which was also something that we were into. And
just look at the heavy metal covers.
Yeah, but that's right. Nowadays, you look at it and you see, everybody's into Metallica and everybody's into this and that. Like back then, that was not that way. Like now, you see Kanye West wearing a friggin' Testament shirt or something. But back then, like people get their ass kicked
for being Metallica fans,
for being metal fans in general.
Who picks on the metal fans? Like, why would you pick the fans of the most dangerous sounding music and pick on them?
See, but that was the thing. Like, you're talking about this rap of like dangerous sounding. It was just somebody that was different. Okay, then maybe they listen to Ozzy or Metallica or whatever. Like, people didn't know. And also back then, you didn't have, like, it wasn't as extreme as it is now. Or you got shit like Cannibal Corpse or whatever. Like, it was a little different. And a lot of those people...
to a lot of the heavy metal from back then, it's surprisingly tame.
Well, yeah.
In a lot of cases,
it developed over time.
Too, if you ask me.
But it was the same kind of thing, because since you had that group and they were kind of isolated and a lot of times just kind of stayed in their own yard, sci-fi fans did the same thing. Because if you were walking around, at least metal was a little different, because you see a kid in like a Metallica shirt, it's like, okay, I can talk to that kid. Like, I can relate to that kid. Sci-fi, you didn't have what you have now. Like, you can go to a mall and buy a Star Wars shirt or something.
Right.
Like, it wasn't as widespread back then, and it was much more of like
as a external. Here's something we can connect with.
Right, exactly. So, because there weren't people walking around wearing Lord of the Rings shirts or something. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And that's where the convention culture became such a big part of it. Because with metal you went to concerts, but like with science fiction, a lot of people the way they connected, the way they bonded was by going to conventions. Mm-hmm. And that was where you met those like-minded people.
Of note, and I wonder, I don't have my box. My box is not readily accessible. But one of the things that I always thought was funny was that in those early days, in the days pre-internet,
your pins.
Yeah, my slogan buttons.
I have no idea where those are.
The slogan buttons.
Oh
yeah, he has a ton of them. People. And it is literally a little box, but it's just full of nothing but pins.
Right. The thing is that once upon a time, there was a calligrapher by the name of Nancy Leibowitz, and she used to make buttons and go to the conventions. And every year, I think I might have mentioned this in the show before, but every year she would have you would clamor to get a hold of her button catalog, because it was all these little slogans, and you'd wear the buttons. I mean, it was an outward way of showing your fandom.
Yeah, that was the beacon, because if you were in school and you saw some kid
with one of her buttons,
with one of those buttons on the backpack, it's like, you know what, that's somebody
I can talk to.
Right. That's somebody that's into going, the convention thing.
Something similar to what
those really were just available. It's not like you could go to a store and buy them or something.
This was one person who made a living out of making these buttons and going to multiple conventions and spreading them.
Yep.
Maybe not even for that purpose, but it became that purpose.
No, yeah. I mean, it wasn't. It was just somebody who made their living doing that. But meanwhile, to us as younger fans, it was like, okay, that's that shining beacon. It's like, okay, because like I said, you couldn't go and you didn't have Lord of the Rings or Star Wars or Star Trek T-shirts as much. Like they're not as common as they are now.
What about going to a comic book store? If you happen to have one,
you had those, but even that was a little bit of a different crowd. Depending, you had places like Dragon's Den, which was in Yonkers, just north of the Bronx where we grew up. So that was a place, and they sold not just comic books, but they sold a lot of role playing stuff, Dungeons and Dragons, things like that. So that was a place but they didn't congregate the same way. It wasn't like they had people like now. You have a lot of places where they
now
have a
it's
whole
not
gaming
just a store,
area
but
in
it's
the
a
back.
gathering place. So then
Right.
it was just a store.
But back then it was really just a store, and you had a few stores that were like that, but it wasn't. Now there's a little more dedicated. Well, Forbidden Planet was a whole different. Yeah.
Forbidden Planet was
Forbidden Planet was a big place.
That was the comic book store. That was the comic book store.
That was downtown Manhattan by.
Where
back then it was on like 12th or 13th Street. It's been around that same 2 or 3 block radius the whole time.
The incredibly expensive, all the collectibles that were just way out of our price range.
But
anyone's price range back then.
I mean, over time this has changed too because now you compare it to now like. Geek culture is everywhere now.
Yeah,
like
now
you walk into the mall, there's Think Geek, there's GameStop,
and being a place for congregation.
Right. But
back then, not so much.
You see how these pops show up everywhere. Back then, you didn't have many places. Like Forbidden Planet was in the city, and that was like the biggest place. And you can get a lot of that collectible stuff. You couldn't get it in most other places. And it didn't exist.
That was part of the reason. That was part of the thing that kept Forbidden Planet running during all the crisis, the comic book crisis.
You're right, because they had other merchandise.
Yeah, they had the other merchandise, and there weren't other places for the most part. A few places here and there, but not widespread like it is now.
Right. And, like the thing of outside of going to like a creation convention, if you wanted to get any sort of, you wanted to get anything imported from Japan, any sort of Japanese toys, hell yeah.
You were paying
for
the nose.
That was it. And that was the thing of, I remember a Yamato spaceship. And it was
like a couple thousand.
Oh yeah, it was like $1,200, $1,300 bucks.
And I'm like,
and the Gundam figures when Gundam was first becoming the big thing that was starting to eke over here. Oh my goodness! Like the I don't even know if they had Perfect Grade back in the 80s.
I think Perfect Grade is mostly from like the 90s. When that started.
That came along later.
Yeah, but the kits that were like $200, $300 for a kit. I remember that.
That's probably just all importing.
Yeah, it was importing.
Well,
it was all importing things.
But that was the thing. To tie it back to Lunicon, that was where I first got exposed. Like I got a bunch of Gundam models. Like I just liked the look of it. Like I hadn't even watched the.
Oh yeah, I mean they're awesome.
I hadn't even watched any of the animated stuff at that point. But I just liked the look of the robots and stuff like that. And like, I'd watched some of the other stuff because I'm not that much of an anime guy. But I liked the whole look and feel of it, so I would go and I'd buy a couple of these models at Lunicon, because back then that was the only place you could get them.
Even when
now you see them in Barnes and Noble or something, but back then...
But it's like, even like... 20 years ago now, like when I was like early teenagers or whatever, they were still hard to find. Like it's only been like the last 15 years or so that they've been easy to get at reasonable prices.
Because that stuff is built up, and that's, I mean, we'll have to backtrack to before, but the internet really changed a lot of that, because that made a lot of the stuff accessible to a much bigger audience.
And not only that, it's like the globalization of it, effect of the internet, made it easier for stores and businesses to actually get stuff.
Because you had your purchasing became worldwide through eBay and Amazon and things like that, but also just the exposure of like who are these characters and where do they come from and the source material and getting people's interest.
And one of the other things that was funny about the thing that was, I know for me, and I know for some of my friends, and I'm not going to speak for you because you can perfectly
speak for you.
I can speak for me.
You're here. You can talk right now. But
I'll just put a hand back here.
Yes, I'm not stuffing my hand up his ass. So
no thanks. Not for me.
We've been playing Cards Against Humanity tonight, so if we're like more raw than usual, that's probably why. Our filters are kind of off.
You need a little elbow grease for that one.
We need to kind of bring it back down to earth a little bit.
You got at least have some foreplay before you go that far.
Oh my god!
But no, the thing about conventions in particular, and the reason why Lunicon was special, even though flawed, heavily flawed, but still special, is that it was a time. A lot of the people that we went to Lunicon with were people we hung out with on a regular basis anyway, and it was nice to be able to spend like 2 or 3 days with them without the constraints of having to either go home or go to school or anything. You could do stuff, and you could stay up late and party and watch all your, go out and watch strange anime and cause a ruckus. And,
and you're talking about, at this point, we were teenagers.
Right.
We were all in high school, like, just to get away from our parents for a night was like, holy shit, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, to be in a
hotel. A relatively unsupervised in a hotel for a weekend.
Have friends that may or may not have had alcohol.
Yeah, that's,
You know,
we will never advocate underage drinking, but we will discuss it.
I mean, things happen.
Yes, exactly.
You know, this was also, 30 years ago at this point?
Yeah.
Almost.
That's like, statute of limitations is long.
Yeah, so,
a lot of the stuff that went on at those conventions.
Sorry, Mom.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that was an escape, but it was also because we were actually interested in stuff.
Right.
Because a lot of us met because we had basically, what was it, like a science fiction club in high school, and it was all like-minded kids that were into...
do you think that was common, or because I know your high school was a special high school, you had the sci-fi club because of the nature of your high school?
That helped.
That helped. I mean, because you had kids that were...
All the magnet schools had a sci-fi club of some sort.
Yeah, I mean... All right, let's just face it. We had a lot of nerds, okay?
We went to a school where you had to actually...
We went to a specialized school where, the level of intelligence
was at least this intelligent.
Well, that's pretty much what it was. You had to take a test to get into the school.
Yep.
So, because of that, you had a different level of intelligence with, your average level of intelligence was higher for this school and for the other schools also. Mm-hmm. And because of that, you had more kids that were into stuff like science fiction. I mean, I was always into it anyway. I mean, I was into it from a young age because, like, I've seen every Star Wars movie pretty much opening day. Mm-hmm. Going back to 1977 when I was 3 years old. You know what I mean?
Barely remember anything, but I know it was there.
Yeah, that's like one of my first memories, like going to... to see it on Fordham Road. And, so for me, it was always something that I was into. And then over time, watching other stuff, when I was a kid, like watching the original Battlestar Galactica, things like that. All these things that were on TV.
There was really a surprising amount of sci-fi on TV before Star Trek made it socially acceptable.
Well, with our age group,
We're post original Star Trek.
Yeah, the original Star Trek was years before.
Okay.
It was 66 to 69. So I mean,
Right.
I was literally. I mean, Star Trek was off the air before I was born.
You had
it was in syndication.
You had the reruns, yeah, but the original
the
run,
Galactica and Buck
was,
Rogers.
Yeah, we had stuff like that,
which was
Flash Gordon.
bad. Yeah. Well, we had the Flash
But then
Gordon.
you also had stuff that was kind of fringe stuff because you had all like the old syndicated Twilight Zone or Tales from the Dark Side, which kind of dabbled, like it was kind of between horror and like you'd have these science fiction elements.
So it's not straight up sci-fi. But...
It's also worth noting that this is about the same time. I mean, you gotta figure this is the mid to late '80s when the rise of the videotape. It was the rise of the VHS machine. So therefore,
that's part of it too.
You know,
for sure.
We used to have the Sci-Fi Club. We would actually show like we watched the first couple episodes of Star Trek. Because they were on VHS. We could get them on VHS, and we could get them we actually watched them, which was a novelty.
And you had things picking up a little bit also because, like we said, there was the genre stuff that was on TV, but then you had Star Trek: The Next Generation that started, which built like a whole new fandom there.
Yeah. Starting the eternal religious debate between
Kirk and Spock.
Kirk and Picard.
Janeway actually wins.
Well, because honestly, Star Wars was kind of dormant at that point because Jedi came out in '83, and then you had no movement again until the prequels, which was the end of the '90s. So at that point,
you had a few
Star Trek,
a few Ewoks movies in the '80s, which.
The less said about them,
you might have had a couple of cartoons.
I remember watching those as a kid. I will never defend them as good cinema, but I did enjoy them.
That's okay. You were a child and your brain was damaged at the time, so you don't have to worry about that.
I was dropped on a big boy statue as a baby.
And boy did it show.
I mean, how many people be like, were you dropped on your head as a child? Yes, I was.
But yeah, so you had the genre kind of building up in a new direction there in the late 80s. Because it had been a slow build because, like you said, there was Buck Rogers and Battlestar Galactica.
What point
and things like
did
that.
Cyberpunk hit? Because it hit in the 80s.
That was like borderline 89, 90.
That was literally probably the last couple of years. I mean, our last couple of years in high school / when you started we started moving towards the college. Because remember, we were playing Cyberpunk, the role playing game, almost every other weekend.
That's what I was going to say, because that started for us at least. Mm-hmm. Because we were sitting there playing Dungeons and Dragons, and then we were playing Star Frontiers, and then we were playing, like, we were doing the paper and pencil gaming thing, and that crossed over a tiny bit with like video game stuff because we were into that from the beginning also, because in the 80s, I mean, you kind of had the video game crash.
Yeah,
after
you had the
Atari had 2600. Yeah, after Atari kind of crashed the whole market. Then it started to build up again with Nintendo, because when did the NES come out? That was like early to mid 80s.
Yeah, 85. I believe.
So you had a few games here and there that crossed over with that, like Eye of the Beholder,
right? But not a whole lot.
Nintendo, but we were more into the paper and pencil stuff. We were doing Dungeons and Dragons, and we were doing Star Frontiers and Gamma World,
and then Rich got a hold of Cyberpunk. And
right, Cyberpunk was
2020 was like the friggin' god, man.
That was another paper pencil.
Yeah, it was...
before people talked about Neuromancer or like anything remotely Cyberpunk related as far as literature goes.
If we could get him on and interview him about his inspirations for Cyberpunk 2020, I would love to know them.
Yeah, it's like
It's like, what inspired you to do this?
Yeah.
Well, when I talked, what's funny is when I talked to Mike Pondsmith,
because you have met him.
When I talked to Mike Pondsmith at, because I actually asked him, it was really funny because I was one of the weirdest cognitive dissonance moments when I went to, I want to say it was Gen Con 91, but it's probably 92, and I actually, at the time, Mike Pondsmith is there, and I'm like, oh, I want to meet Mike Pondsmith, and I walk up to this man, and now you have to understand. For the most part, if you've ever seen, or if you ever dig up, Google, Cyberpunk 2013 and Cyberpunk 2020, look at all the artwork, look at the writing style, look at everything, and it is all written from this extremely, and his exact words were, Eurotrash. It's very, very much this kind of mixture of all this white, Nagel painting style, like everyone's, not only are they white, but they're almost anime white.
Yeah,
and what's funny is, Mike Pondsmith's black. And it was weird, because... And he was so funny. He was so completely understood. He actually was. he's like yes. And the thing is that it would never have sold if I tried to sell it as anything other than what it was. I mean, Cyberpunk as a genre is a very Eurotrash thing, and it's very, very much white people behaving badly. And it's like trying to do anything to if you muck up, if you want to do anything with it, you can't do anything other than have the kind of what we see in like Firefly much later on. Right. Is this whole thing of all of the races kind of melange into this great big mess.
And really, when you're most of the settings in Cyberpunk stuff is, if not a globalized culture, very closely to globalized. And at that point, everyone's going to be mixed up.
Yeah, so
there's going to be very little distinct races anywhere.
It's like, it's blend until you're indistinguishable kind of thing.
Well, a lot of it kind of, I mean, my understanding was that some of it at least came from like a lot of the dystopian anime stuff, where it was kind of just the future mega cities, which I use that term even though that's more of a Judge Dredd 2000 AD thing.
The mega cities as a thing as a word, that is definitely Judge Dredd, but still in 80s
anime took it over. And it was
Neo Tokyo, every single time they do it, it's basically like the mega cities from Judge Dredd on crack.
Right, but that's what I mean. Cyberpunk kind of took that. Yeah,
Blade Runner was one of the big inspirations for the look and feel of the game, of the Cyberpunk genre, especially for the game, for the paper. And of course, we had all seen it at the time, and we were all kind of fucking gaga over it. And the funny thing was that I remember going with my then girlfriend to go see, and I think my other boyfriend, I think it was when I was with Katie and Yvonne. But we had gone to see this
It's
movie called,
complicated.
yeah, it was
Scandalous.
No, we had gone to see this movie called Hardware, and it is still
We
to this day
we
it's
need
still-
to do an episode about Hardware.
It's just like the most epic cyberpunk fail movie ever.
It is.
I don't even remember this.
You're probably better off.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
I may have blocked it out.
Imagine a low budget B Terminator.
mixed with almost, you could almost say Short Circuit, because God knows
Yeah,
that damn
practically.
thing, that goddamn robot that was supposed to.
It's as terrible as it sounds, but that kind of makes it a thing of hideous beauty.
Like
Yeah,
I said,
it
I may have blocked it out.
It was
Probably.
It had one jump scare in it, and it was really funny because the thing is that this movie was not a horror movie. It was,
Nope.
well, it was a horrible movie.
It was a horrible movie.
We sat with our jaws. We sat with our jaws on the floor the entire time, going, "Who the fuck wrote this?"
It was a different type of horror movie.
And it what is it? Was that the one that I'm trying to remember whether it was Lemmy who actually did it was either Lemmy or Iggy Pop did a voice in it, and I want to say it's Lemmy, but it might not have been. But the funny thing is that it's like it was just so awful. It was like there have only been a couple of movies in my entire life that I just wanted to get up and walk out on because I felt so thoroughly insulted by
And it is a terrible movie.
And the thing, it's when you're sitting there like laughing at the awkwardness of the stupid
But
premise.
the only thing that would have kept you in your seats for that movie is the same reason people look at car crashes.
Yeah, it's the kind of like watching.
You got your
where is
money's
this
worth
going?
for an entirely unrelated reason to the movie's purpose.
And then the funny thing is, I remember distinctly turning to Yvonne and going, "We need to play Cyberpunk to wash this filth out of my brain." I need to go play Cyberpunk. And the funny thing is that like, it's the weird evolution of fandom, especially from our perspective, because remember that
because you guys are old enough that you saw a lot of the generation that came before you, and you interacted with a lot of the generation that came before you, and then you saw the generations that have come after you and how it's changed. So you have a good perspective from there.
And we wanted to fucking eat our elders.
The genre really changed. I mean, because you had it start basically kind of. I mean, you could really go back and look at like Metropolis or something, but like the genre really kind of kicked in in the '60s.
And it's like, yeah, well, Metropolis is like, yes, it is, but not within its own time.
Right.
Yes,
Because you could look at like, you know, the old movies like Forbidden Planet and like Day the Earth Stood Still and stuff like that, but kind of the genre stuff as we know it, to me at least, kind of started with like 2001, Planet of the Apes. You know, that 60s into the early 70s was when it really started to pick up, and then from there you went to like, you know, Star Wars. You had Star Trek, which was part of that era, and then Star Trek kind of died out, and then Star Trek picked up again when they did the first movie, and around that was right after Star Wars came out,
like,
and blew the doors off
and Star
hinges.
Wars suddenly turned into like,
we can
holy
make
shit,
money
we can
off
make
of
some
this.
money with this thing. And then you had Battlestar Galactica, and you had Space 1999, and you had Buck Rogers.
Oh yeah, let's not forget.
And those are the good ones. Like there were plenty that were,
plenty of trash.
pretty, you know. But even the actual films too. You had stuff that came out in the '70s, like Silent Running and stuff like that. And that
I think
kind
this
of
one
started.
is more later '80s, maybe even '90s Black Hole.
Oh, Black Hole.
That was the '80s.
Yep, that was
the '80s,
That
and
was
that was a
Disney's
good
answer to Star
movie.
Wars.
Yeah, that was a good movie.
It's a good movie. It is a good movie, but
Wasn't
it's
perfect.
Still kind of like.
But
Captain Nemo in space.
I mean, like one.
that may have been one. I don't know if it was the first, but it was one of the first PG movies that Disney ever did.
Yeah, and it's like
Black Cauldron, I think, is earlier.
Yeah.
Possibly.
But it's like that. The first time I saw that was actually a bunch of friends together for a Halloween night movie, and that was the movie we chose, was Black Hole.
Yeah.
And it's good, but it's also because of just the effects. It's so kooky sometimes, and it's just like,
hey, remember when Battle Beyond the Stars came out?
Oh wow!
It had a ship.
Don't ask him; he doesn't know.
Yeah, I was like,
is that the one you thought was a fever dream?
Yeah, no, well, maybe not. But
The Italian one.
No. That's Star Pilot.
Oh, Star Pilot.
Wow.
That's Star Pilot.
I have that.
Oh yeah, please. That's it's so fucking awful. It is. It really is like
there's enough.
MST3K should have done it. It really, it desperately needs an MST3K done.
But it's like there are so many of these old often bad movies.
Oh yeah,
I
there's
have
tons of them.
I got the sci-fi 100 movie collection thingy, which is where I have Star Pilot, and it's literally just a whole bunch of discs with just every single sci-fi movie they could find, regardless of quality. Actually, the worse the better, because then they're cheaper and we can throw more in there.
Well, you see, the genre grew like I was saying. You had that progression because Star Wars came out, and then from there everybody jumped on it. And you had a lot of good quality stuff that came out, but then you also had a lot of garbage. But you had stuff like Alienation or Enemy Mine. Or
I still need to see that.
Great movie.
I know, like I've heard about it. I know the basic premise and some of the spoilers.
And it's a very different type of movie because a lot of movies you expect to have a lot of characters, isn't it? It's basically
it's like this is
two characters.
That's it. It's a slower moving, almost drama sci-fi. And I like that kind of stuff.
But it went over a lot of people's heads.
Honestly, that does not surprise me.
But you had stuff like that, and then you had stuff that kind of dabbled. You know, stuff like The Thing was kind of a horror movie, kind of a science fiction movie. The Alien series, stuff like that. But that's what I'm saying, that you have that kind of clear progression, and you can see that starting with basically like 2001 was where things started to change because the effects were different. They weren't perfect by any means, but they were very different.
Were getting much better at having
what existed
much
beforehand.
easier, much better to have actual fantastical special effects that got the right point across without being crayon blood.
And 2001 was a very different type of movie. It was more of a head type of movie that went over a lot of people's heads, and it's not for everyone.
I actually watched that movie from start to finish.
Yeah.
When I was a kid. Barely had any idea what was going on.
Right.
But I can remember it, and I sat through the whole thing.
Oh yeah, me too. But when I was younger, it kept my attention, but I couldn't process half of it, and then I watched it later on, and I fully understood it. But you had stuff like that, but then you had stuff like Planet of the Apes, which they were low on the effects just because of budget.
But it
told a great story.
So well.
Yeah.
I have not seen any of the other Planet of the Apes movies though, and I know there's there 6 of them?
Yeah, I have them all. I have the Blu-ray box, but some of the storytelling got a little crazy on it because it started to get really weird. But if you go to the original that was great.
Movie is really good.
I mean, I always point to the trilogy that Charlton Heston did in the late 60s into the early 70s because they're all really good and really different movies because you had the first Planet of the Apes, you had Soylent Green,
yeah, that's good.
And you had the Omega Man.
That one I have not seen.
And they're all very different types of movies, but they're all great in their own way.
Yeah,
they tell great stories.
Soylent Green is one of the first, if not the first, actual dystopian movie.
Right.
Straight up dystopian movie.
Right. Well, you had others, but it was different because Omega Man was kind of dystopian in its own way also, and what a lot of people don't realize is that I Am Legend with Will Smith, that was based on the same source material.
It's a crappy version of
because the original book was called I Am Legend.
Right.
They turned it into they made it multiple times into a movie. The first one was Vincent Price, was it?
I can't remember now.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm with the because
But I forget. That wasn't called the Omega Man. But I feel like it wasn't called I Am Legend either. I'm forgetting.
Right.
I'm spacing out. But then you had the second one, which was the Charlton Heston one, which was set on the West Coast, which I think was where the original story was set. And then the Will Smith one, which I did enjoy. I don't knock it. A lot of people didn't like it.
It kind of misses, from what I understand, because I haven't seen the source material.
Right.
It does miss the point of the source material.
I think all three of them.
But it's a competent movie.
The original source material was a book.
Right.
And all three of them borrowed, took different aspects from the books.
And that's how you...
And I don't think any of them are truly faithful to the book, but I could be wrong.
That's what makes adapting a good practice.
Right.
When it's done properly.
Because
you get 3 different movies that can all be good from the same source material that come at it from a different angle. And you can get more out of the story by seeing all 4.
I'll give you an example of that. Planet of the Apes, because I've read the original book. Completely different. Because in Planet of the Apes, the book, the apes are way more advanced. They have their own cities. They have buildings. They have a stock market. They have buildings with poles sticking out of the side so they can swing from building to building.
It's their sidewalks.
In a lot of the story takes place in a hospital where they have the human and basically keeping them and like want to experiment on them and all this stuff. And when they decided to adapt it into the Charlton Heston movie, they were like, well, we can't afford all this stuff. So they dumbed it down and it was basically, like sand and caves and stuff like that. Because there's a great, if you get like the Blu-ray box or even the regular DVD box, there's a great documentary in there about the making of the Planet of the Apes movies, and they talk about that they're storyboarding all this stuff out, and they're like, yeah, budget, no way.
It's like, we'd love to, but we can't.
Yeah, and they basically show them sketching it all out, and then sketching out the more primitive version, and going with that, because they knew that they couldn't build this like super modern ape city.
But you can still tell the same story by bringing them back in their, all you do is just turning the timeline back.
The other part of that is that then Tim Burton did his, which a lot of people hated. But I will say that also took a lot of elements from the original source material, because the ending that so many people hated in that movie is very similar to the ending in the book.
The one where he ends up he thinks he's home, but it's...
Right. Because in the book, they talk about, they land somewhere and there's a Jeep coming from a long way and they can see the dust clouds and stuff like that. And as they get closer, they realize that the person driving the Jeep is an ape. So it's very similar in that way to how the Tim Burton movie ended up. Not quite the Abe Lincoln statue, but
Ape Lincoln.
Yeah, Ape Lincoln.
Abe Lincoln.
But no, you still borrow elements, and they kept that one primitive also. They didn't go and trick it all out with like modern buildings and stuff like that.
I suppose good.
One of the things that it's funny because we go back, you start talking about going back when we were kids. I mean, younger kids. And one of the things that's funny about one of the things that we've constantly over the years talked about with the convention stuff is not, it boils down to we could do a better job of it ourselves, but that's a given because we could.
Well,
I mean,
you did.
Yeah, I did.
You have proof of it.
I can prove it.
Well, I think the problem that happens with stuff like that is that people get into that creative bubble, and you see it. I mean, I've seen it happen in different aspects. I've seen it happen with George Lucas. Mm-hmm. I've seen it happen with Vince McMahon with wrestling.
One of the best things that happened to the Star Wars universe was George no longer having anything to do with the writing.
I agree. And listen, people have made documentaries about it. The people versus George Lucas.
I mean, it's like, they would not exist. They would not be as good as they are without him. But he's beyond a point where he can contribute well to them.
You get lost in your own bubble. And like I said, because I'm a big pro wrestling fan. And I see it happen all the time with wrestling nowadays, because it's just, Vince McMahon controls his company, but he's just so far inside that bubble that, much like George Lucas, because they're both very creative people, they're very similar in this way, because if you look at the history, it almost looks exactly the same, just with a different format, a different media. They get so lost in their bubble that it's almost like they're actively giving their diehard fans the finger.
Right.
It's like the prequels at times. It's almost like George Lucas is actually like, you know what, fuck you guys. And I see that happen a lot with wrestling too, with Vince McMahon. And it's like, you know what your fans want and what your people want, and you're actively going against it. And it's just that I think they're so lost in that bubble.
Right.
They're kind of they haven't actually talked to an actual fan ever.
I know what you want better than you know.
Right. You think you want this, but you don't.
And that's where it all starts to sour, because look at what happened with the prequels. Mm-hmm. And that's a perfect example. And it's happened with other series also.
There can, depending on the length of the series and what's going on, there can definitely come a point where the original creator needs to step away from it.
Right. Right. And that's a hard thing.
Whether permanent or otherwise, yes.
No, that's true. No, it's true in fandom. Because people
that's where we were going. That those people get lost in their bubble also, and
a lot of, let's face it, a lot of the people who are important in fandom are people who have no redeeming value outside of fandom, and they're hiding. It's the only place where they feel like they have any relevance.
That's in a way that's what I'm saying, because like you have your creative people, and that's their creativity.
Yeah, that
they feel like they can be involved in the convention side of things. And I mean,
It's
you
the,
guys...
It's the only place they can still draw any sense of self or worth, and that's a problem.
Yeah, I mean, they have control of that space, and at some point, you have control of that for so long, you start to kind of lose your focus and lose touch with your audience.
Mm-hmm.
You lose touch with what these people want, what they're looking for, and you lose touch at times, and we can talk about this with Lunacon at length, you lose touch with not just the people that you're trying to service, but just the genre
that you're trying to be part of.
And
honestly,
in a way you're trying to service. You're trying to be a part of this culture, but you just totally lost.
And really, Lunacon is an excellent case study for this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that's exactly what's happening. Is like their refusal to change
Well,
or get out of that bubble is basically killing them because they can't. They're
what's
no longer
happening.
part of it.
It started to happen 20 years ago, and it's crazy because if you think about it, young man, look at the changes that have happened in the genre in 20 years, and I'm talking about. You can look at the internet as a big catalyst for stuff like that.
Oh yes, everything has changed.
But just even, and God knows, I mean, 20 years ago, we were having these conversations in diners and talking about Lunacon after the weekend, and just like, what the hell are they doing? And it was because, and let's take it out of the genre for a second, okay? People are friends for a long time. And I have this with bands that I've been in and other people that I've been friends with. People change. And sometimes things go in different directions and you don't get along like you used to. And sometimes you kind of have to adjust. And it happens to married couples. It happens to all kinds of people. Do you know anybody that's ever seen a marriage counselor? It's because sometimes these things kind of separate and you have to adjust.
Right.
And adjusting is a natural part of life.
It's part of growing. Yeah.
But with some people, especially those that are lost in that creative bubble, they can't adjust.
And you can't tell them either.
No, absolutely not.
No.
But
that will just make them recede even further in their bubble.
This is the root problem with Lunacon, and like I said, it goes back 20 years plus. Because, and I say this, and I'm not a convention guy like you guys are. I don't go to a lot of conventions. I used to go to New York Comic Con, and that was really it. And even I haven't even done that in years.
Mostly just because you lived in New York.
Yeah. And listen, I enjoyed Comic Con. It's just that they changed it so much that it just wasn't enjoyable for me anymore.
Right.
But it's not like I'm going, affordable too. But Lunacon was the only convention that I ever really went to on a regular basis for a while. I don't go to all kinds of other conventions. Not that I'm knocking it. I know you guys do it and you enjoy it.
Never become something
it was just never something for me that I was that wrapped up in. But it also gives me a different perspective because I watched Lunacon change, and I watched the people that were in charge of it just refuse to adjust, not just to their fans, but to the genre. Mm-hmm. And I equate it to the music business because being a musician and having worked, for music companies over the years, look at the internet and the way it changed music. And a lot of people in a lot of different places within the music business dug their feet in and were like, well, we're not going to change the way we do things. And that's why so many people are out of work in that business now.
It's like it,
and
until they changed and adapted to that new environment, they suffered.
I like to say you can't stop a waterfall. If that's the way things are going, if that's the way the water's going, you're not going to stop it. You can sit there with your hands up and try, but what's going to happen to you?
You're going to get wet.
If that's the way it's going to go,
wash you away.
Then you can either adjust or you can get swept away. And that's why Lunacon basically got swept away. Mm-hmm. Because we watched Lunacon dig their feet in and refuse to change and adjust with the times as the internet. I mean, it's not even just the internet, but the internet definitely hastened it.
Yeah.
But it was just the idea of the genre was changing because you didn't just have your hard sci-fi stuff.
As I was from the stories, it's like they were not trying to bring in the new things that were popping up. They were trying to dig their feet into these old things.
Right.
Not that you have to change. Not that you should chase every new hotness that comes up. But if something new has been around for a couple of years, it's probably staying.
Well,
so Look into that.
One example that I used a lot back then, and it's a great example now, is that you didn't, sci-fi wasn't just spaceships and aliens.
Mm-hmm.
And the great example of that I used at the time to illustrate how Lunacon was kind of going off the rails was the X-Files. Because the X-Files was this genre thing, but it wasn't like, they kind of incorporated UFOs and stuff like that, but it was science fiction. It wasn't like we're out in space.
Science fiction.
Right. But that was the kind of thing that as it got hot, you should capitalize on this.
Yeah.
And they created this thing, and it's called the Sci-Fi Channel. Can you fucking spell it out anymore? Why aren't you... Because these channels all have marketing departments. Mm-hmm. And especially a new channel like that, they're going to kiss your ass and send you 100 fucking posters and send you all kinds of other stuff because they got a bunch of these new shows that they want to promote.
One year.
And
1 year. They got... When Dinotopia was coming out.
Right.
Someone... I must have fallen on a phone or something. Accidentally called the marketing department and got a whole bunch of the goodie bags for the we actually had bags.
I never actually saw the movie.
We actually had bags and people were putting the program guides in the bags, and the bags had Dinotopia on them. And I still think it was funny because it's the first thing that I thought was like someone must have accidentally fallen on the phone and it happened to land on a number.
But this is actually the kind of thing you want to do as a convention.
Oh no! Here's the thing. Here's the problem with the elitist snobbery we were dealing with.
That's really what it came down to.
They talk big shit about how they want it to be a literary convention. So the problem is that
comic books.
Let's say
right out.
Yeah. Well, no. The things here's what the things that one of the things that was suggested to them was, well, you want writers. Well, why not comics writers?
Right.
Why not? You don't have to get the illustrators. You have to get just comics writers. And these people are not expensive.
Well, and also some of those people were writing novels like Chris Claremont. Mm-hmm. Was writing X-Men, but he was also putting out novels.
And these people also, the fun part is...
You have to survive as a writer.
Well, that's what happens.
If you're not writing, you're not living. Well, I mean, literally.
But it's just, but this is part of what we're talking... Because let's backtrack a little bit. When we started going to these conventions, they started jumping on the anime thing. And they would have the anime room, which was always a popular thing. And this was... way before, like now, anime is common. Like everybody knows what Attack on Titan is or whatever.
That was the only way you could really see anime.
Well, that's the other thing. Unless you had somebody with a connection that was getting the stuff on VHS somehow, this was your chance. And it was also, let's face it, was also a gateway drug because you had kids that would go to this convention, high school kids, that didn't know shit about anything, and all of a sudden like, oh, what's this? Oh, that looks pretty cool. And that was what drew people in. And that was one example of something that they kind of capitalized on because every year they would have an anime room and they would show anime pretty much 24/7. And there were kids that just camped out in that room and were exposed to all kinds of stuff that they wouldn't have been exposed to otherwise. Right. And that was a great thing.
That's one of the things that made conventions great.
Right. Yeah. And they could have capitalized on that in other ways, and they didn't.
So we got the anime room, we can stop now.
They got the anime room. The problem, one of the biggest things is that there's this kind of, as I said, when I mentioned the elitist snobbery, I'm like, the problem with the concept of actual writers. Well, writers are writers, and these people who write comic books are not writers. And I'm like, but they bullshit.
They are.
They are writers, and they write a lot fast. They're a much more coordinated staff of writers. And the thing is that it's the thing that blew my mind is that not only were they bad at doing the guest thing. They were bad at doing the guest thing. Because the problem was that they would have guests. They had people like I think a couple of years after me, or a couple of years after I stopped going, they got Michio Kaku to show up. And from what I was told, and I mean the thing is, this is simply back what people report back to me because they know that I have this kind of perverse desire to find out what disaster happened this year.
I don't want to be part of it. But I want to see it fall.
But I want to know, yes, I will drink deeply of the tears of all those stupid people involved. But the thing is, apparently, that there was all sorts of fuck-ups with how they did his arrangements to get up there, his rooming arrangements, or rather his staying arrangements. I don't think he actually even stayed the night. I think he just came up there to do a panel and left, but they didn't have they had no tech for him. And I'm going, it's that thing of like, and again, this is what, the problem with coordination. It's just the fact that these people are so locked into what they do, and everything has to be kind of status quo. They're like they're legitimately addicted to their status quo status.
Yeah.
They're
more important that they keep their status and they actually
their comfort
do
zone.
good.
Everything has to stay in their comfort
Well,
zone.
the other part of it too is that they didn't understand that that's the guy you roll out the red carpet for.
Right.
And in the grand scheme of things, that's not, for most people, that's not necessarily a red carpet thing. But like, you're a small regional convention. You get a guy at that level, roll out the fucking red carpet for that.
And everything more.
Because you know what?
You want him talking about your convention when he goes away.
Exactly, because then, and this was another part of the problem, because if you build those relationships, whether it's with the Sci-Fi Channel or whether it's with these individual artists or writers or whatever, as you build those relationships, all those people will work together.
Yeah.
So they're going to be like, oh, you should check out this thing.
Mm-hmm. He was awesome.
Because let's face it, other than Isaac Asimov,
Yep.
who the hell ever went to that convention?
I mean, they had,
you know what I mean?
They had occasional. It's like it was just they didn't market themselves at all. It was just
not a matter of
Asimov would go because he was friends with some people,
right?
And he was New York based, and it was just
he just walked down the street to it.
It was just it was like
sure, I'm not doing anything this weekend.
It was a 20-minute car ride away.
Right. But the thing was funny was that they partly because of how the internal power struggles in the group ran. It was just so much acrimony between all the so much strife, and
which we can really demonstrate when we actually do the episode where we talk about his running of LunaCon.
Well, but
that was a learning experience and a half.
But you know what? Let's go back to something here for a second, because we talked about the fact that you were sitting there like, ooh, he, I want to watch them fail. But that was based on the idea that all these suggestions were being made over the years, and everybody just kind of shit on it.
Yeah,
it's like constantly being shut down. Oh, well,
because
if you could do it better, you should. And then he does it better. And afterwards, nothing.
What I said about rolling the red carpet out for a guest like that and how that would build up, that a lot of that was met with all this nose in the air bullshit.
Like, what do you mean these people are worth that?
And it's like, listen, you're not running fucking Gen Con.
Mm-hmm.
You're not running like you're not running like a big convention here. And frankly, you're running a small regional convention, and if you're smart, you want to build your numbers because that's normal.
Right.
Nobody runs a convention so that they can shrink every year.
Although these individuals,
if there
are any, it'd be these.
Yeah, if you look at it, like it's almost like, but that's what I mean. Like you get so lost in that bubble that you just want it to be your people, and
truly, I think that's what happened with them.
And it's not even like the idea of like these corporate cultures now where the stockholders want to have growth and all this stuff. It's just, you know what? We're doing this small convention. We would like to bring more people and have more people enjoy what we're doing.
Right.
And it's really that simple.
It's
and yet it was
really
met with like such crazy resistance that it's like, what are these people thinking?
Was to be appreciated and lauded for what they are doing.
Right.
When you're running a convention, your goal should be celebrating and sharing what makes whatever the convention's about
getting the convention
such a good thing with as many people as possible.
But also the flip side of that, which is another thing that boggles the mind with this, is that you have to run it like a business.
Yes, you do.
And we've had countless conversations about this because, okay, you don't, you're running a small regional convention. You would like to get more people. If nothing else, and I think about this in other aspects, because like if you're in a band like I am, or you're a musician, like, okay, you're not going to make a lot of money doing it, but at least you can cover your costs. Right. Okay? If you can pay for rooms for your staff, you're doing pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay? Because they're all volunteers, and it's like, okay, well, we can treat them like fucking volunteers, or we could say, hey, you know what? You're donating your time for this whole week and however long leading up to this convention. The least we can do is pay for your room for the weekend.
Yeah.
And one of the
Which
other
is
conventions
not
we
really-
do actually does.
Other conventions do it.
And that's really the only reason we still do it,
it's
because we wouldn't afford it otherwise.
Yeah.
Because listen, we all like to do what we enjoy, but that doesn't necessarily mean that there's any money generated from
Right.
it. But you're talking about an expense, and who's laying out this money, and you want to at least build up to the point where, okay, I'm not coming out of pocket.
Right.
And
like, you may not make profit
besides-
or anything, but
yeah, I mean that's
you can
your
take care-
baseline goal. But then on top of that, if you can do it and at least provide some perks for the people that are working for you,
that's
even
success.
if and the flip side of it is that as you build that, you know what? Hey, we got a bigger guest that's going to want a couple of $1,000s. Okay,
We can do that.
you know, our year 2000 convention is going to pay so that we can bring in that guest for 2001.
Yeah.
These are all basic growth things, and it's
Yeah.
not like it's not to put money in your pocket. If nothing else, it's to make sure that you don't take money out of your pocket.
And a lot of people miss
And-
that in general, even the ones that aren't on problems. But it's like, these things, you need to make a certain level of money, not necessarily profit. Making money and making profit are not the same thing.
Right.
Right. But the other thing, one of the things that people at Lunacon in particular did not understand is that you are not running this convention for you.
Right.
Yeah.
You are running the convention for the person who's paying anywhere from $35 to $65 to actually attend the damn thing.
Right. And
And
you've
if
got to
they're
cater
not
them
happy,
to a point.
they're the ones
Yeah.
that you
If
have to
nobody
please.
who attends your cons significantly remembers any staffer that they
Right.
met, but they talk about your convention for the next week,
Mhm.
3 weeks to like a month and a half, people around them, on either end of them going to it and them coming out of it, you have succeeded.
And
Exactly.
That is where the focus should be, and that's, from what I've heard,
And-
LunaCon focus has never been there.
And that's what goes back to what I said initially about growing.
Mhm.
Okay? Okay, maybe you're not turning a profit, but at the very least you can cover your costs and pay going forward.
if you're breaking even and
If you're
making a
breaking even, if you're offering perks to your volunteers, you know, like that's the least you can do, you
Yeah.
know? Because then your volunteers are going to stick with you.
Right.
Because it's hard
And
enough.
like any job, even real jobs, if you can't retain your employees, your business will fail.
Right. And listen, for the convention stuff, it's tougher because it's extracurricular.
Right.
You
You're
know?
not. They don't have the
You-
monetary incentive. They have to put aside time, or in some cases, take time out of their actual job.
Right.
And they may not get paid for that to do this. So
But-
you need to make it worth their while.
Your other part of it too is that there's certain aspects of this thing that if you have knowledgeable people, it helps you.
Mhm.
Whether it's interacting with, you know, channels or artists or whatever, or whether it's interacting with the actual facilities. Okay, you know your hotel layout. You know what lighting stuff you need for the masquerade. You know how to do lighting or sound for the masquerade.
Right.
Like, these are not things that you just want some random person stepping into.
You really don't. If you can find somebody and keep somebody that
Exactly.
can do that,
Exactly.
you do want to do that.
And if you can get somebody that's going to donate their time to do that, at the very least, if you can pay for their room for the weekend, you're going to keep them happy.
Yeah, even if they have... even
Because
if
a
they-
lot of them do it for the love,
Right.
but at the very least, if they don't have to lay out, the same way we're talking about laying out money in these other directions, if they don't have to lay out money,
Yeah.
then you know
if
what?
this volunteering, while it may not be a financial boon, if it does become a financial burden,
right,
they will want to continue doing it because they'll be doing it for the love of it.
exactly. But the love of it doesn't pay the bills.
I don't think the Lunarians have any love.
No, that's the problem.
No, well, that's another part of it because a lot of them were so wrapped up, like we said, in their own nonsense that the whole idea of growth just didn't go anywhere because all of these things, like I said, we'll take it back to the late 80s, early 90s when you were still going much later, but I used
Right.
to go a lot and then I stopped. But you had the genre changing.
Mm-hmm.
You had a lot of these things going on, whether it was cable TV, whether it was the X-Files, these other genre things that were going on. You had all these things that you could have capitalized on. Even, for fuck's sake, the expanded universe of Star Wars.
That's
The
all
novels.
books. It's all novels.
Right.
Bring in those authors.
But no, because
it was Star Wars.
It's Star Wars. It's
even though it's books, They're not real
they
books
did-
because they're based off a movie.
They did
so they're
get
not
some
real
stuff.
writers.
They did get some stuff because when they did the book raffles and stuff like that, there was some Star Wars stuff in there here and there. But we're not talking about like some random books that somebody sent. You want content. You want to have free posters to give away. You want to have people that are interested in having
Is there
a
a new
panel
Star
to
Wars
talk
book
about.
coming out? Get the author.
Right. Exactly. And you know what? Like I said, a lot of these companies have budgets, whether it's Random House or whether it's the Sci-Fi
books,
Channel
yeah.
or all these other things, and they're dying to get people into their shit.
And really, if an author has the time, they'll do it
Of course.
because they need to market. It is
Of course.
You need to be able to market yourself, and for that you need opportunity. It's the only. I'm paying you an exposure that makes any damn sense because they're actually able to take their books there and sell them.
Right. And that's, once again, music business, same kind of thing. You'll have artists that'll go and they'll do an in-store performance and you don't have to pay them anything. Why? Because if they do that in-store performance, hopefully they're going to sell some CDs.
Right.
Right then and there, on the spot. Same kind of thing. It's like you bring in an author, they might do it for cheap or for free because you might get on-site book sales. And this is something that exists in the book business. It's not a new thing. It's not.
No,
not
it's
some
a staple of,
crazy
of
concept.
selling yourself in the book
Right.
business.
Staple.
It's
Right.
quite literally, this is something you will be expected to need to do.
But yet these things were met with resistance,
Oh my goodness.
and it just boggles my mind. And it was all down to we're a literary convention, but it's like you're not even cashing in on the literary side.
Yeah, you're not even doing that properly.
And let's face it, I mean, this is even before the internet. The internet just made it even worse. But
It accelerated an already started decaying process.
the media was changing, and you had a lot of people that were reading the comic books and reading, not reading the books as much as the novels.
Right.
You had people watching movies. You had people watching
shows,
TV.
movies.
Like, how are you going to isolate all of that stuff? Because even the gaming companies, they would have a game room, but they weren't doing anything with the gaming companies either.
Nope.
And you're still talking about paper pencil. We're not talking about playing Civilization or something.
Right.
Nope.
You're talking about paper pencil. Like you could reach out to TSR. You could reach out to
Back then.
to these other
When they
companies.
existed.
Yeah, exactly.
Back when they
You
existed.
could
Until
read,
furry
you know,
games or
listen. You had FASA. You had TSR. You had
You'd think that the people at TSR would have gotten along with the Lunarians. It's the same kind of elitistness that actually caused TSR's downfall.
exactly. But,
yeah, but you know what? It was still something. And even if they tried to make those contacts and nothing came of it, at least they would have tried. But they just had no interest and no desire.
But yeah, and the thing is, what's funny is that so as we got older, and he would occasionally poke his head in, just to see the.
Yeah, I mean, a few times over the years I did pop up again.
Because the other thing was that the one of the sad truths, I suppose, I don't know what's sad, but the thing is that when we have the it's your 30th 30-year anniversary, we're like, well, we got all our anniversaries out because for several years after we stopped going to college, high school, we were still seeing these people every year in March.
Right.
As every year in
the
March.
Lunicon.
Yeah, it was Lunicon. It was our annual, and believe it, figure I graduated I skipped straight on to college in 89, 90. So from 1990 through 2006, I went to every Lunicon past, those are all the ones that are past high school. So that's post high school. I saw a lot of the same faces. And the thing is that a lot of people, we've ever since, when I stopped going, people were starting to wane off at that point. Mostly because they were going to other conventions.
Better conventions.
Yeah, that was,
Right.
The problem is that there's only so much that the shiny newness of youth does wear off after a while.
Right.
And then you start to see the cracks.
No, the problem is after I did my convention, the thing was that everyone was so happy, and then I wasn't doing the convention anymore, and then people realized that that people were just not getting it. The truth was that, and I've had people.
And that's
I've
what's
had
frustrating.
friends.
It's like you proved that it could be done. You proved Lunicon had it in itself to be a growing con, and what did they do with all those lessons?
They shit on them.
Yeah.
They completely ignored them. And they went right back to doing exactly the same stupid shit that they were doing before that. Which left me... It's not so much... The trauma of that was the fact that I was just like, but you didn't have to be like that. it didn't have to be like that at all. You know, like I showed you.
I'm sure it's not a bad taste in your mouth.
Oh my! It was like, oh please! I was literally, I didn't want to talk. I would not talk to anybody from the convention for about 3 months after the handoff meeting. I was, you know, Dom Corrado was the only person who could actually talk to me, and I could give him short bursts back of text without like losing my shit with it, you know, because I was still kind of like growling at him like, don't talk to me. I really just don't want to talk about it because they're like, but there's no, don't want to talk about it. I will, you know, like I personally wanted to murder the person who followed me, and to this day, I'm
probably would have been a waste of lead.
Yeah, no. We would waste a bullet on him. I'd rip his skull out. You know, I'd Mortal Kombat finish him and pull his spine out of him. It's like, well, what little was remaining of it. But the problem was that it's not that the con was not. It's not the con that was flawed. It was everything that was.
The con was a victim.
Yeah, the con was the victim.
Right.
Because people want to have a good time. Let's just face it. You go to a con, you want to have a good time.
Mm-hmm.
And we had some pretty wild ass times at LunaCon when we had the energy to have those wild ass times.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
that's true.
We're
Early 20s.
Yeah, I mean it's like
teenager.
Yeah, well, the other things, yeah. Because I mean, right now Dragon Con murders me every year.
I don't have the energy for like crazy ass con and stuff like that. Dragon Con's just barely enough for me. It's like, and I'm, you know, not as old as you guys, so it's
we've got
once it dies off fast.
I'm theoretically, I'm biologically old enough to be your father, and
I think you feel so good.
Yeah, it's
oh boy.
I'm getting grayer as we're sitting here. But the thing is that like, this is another person who has suffered through, you know, decades of dealing with, you know, with my, especially because he would be when I was doing my LunaCon year, it was talking to him the entire time,
no,
like bitching about the
and what's crazy is that here we are, you know, how many years later, and it's still the same. I mean, they stopped for a year or whatever.
Oh,
they
are they officially dead now, or just mostly dead?
Well, they're not having one in 2018. There wasn't one in 2017. They don't think they're not planning one for 2018.
Right. It's dead.
Well, they did try to portray it like they were still going to do it, and then they finally...
Even if they managed to do one in 2019, it's dead at this point.
The problem is that...
I mean, it's harder to come back from that. You know what I mean?
Like 1 year off, you could come back. 2 years off, I don't think so.
And the thing is that the
people would have forgotten to you by then.
The problem is that people wanted to forget about them. Trust me.
There's that too.
From what I heard, but you know... The thing is that, you know, we've been around for a long time. We've seen the rise. I mean, I was literally there for the rise of the whole vampire LARPing thing.
Oh god.
I was
you can't
there.
See me. You can't see me.
I was, you know, like, I feel like, you know, like Doctor Who, when he saw the Daleks being created, he could have stopped them, but he didn't. And I kind of feel like if I lit the room on fire, we might have just, how different
I
the world
could have stopped this.
And this is nothing against the White Wolf guys. I love them to pieces, but still, I mean, it's just.
Okay. As awesome as the werewolf game is, there is no way you don't make. There's no way to make vampire. There is no way to make vampire LARP not kooky as hell.
Yep.
Doesn't matter. It's impossible. The fact that there are individuals that can divorce themselves enough from the silliness of what they're doing to actually enjoy themselves in a storyline and a LARP like that.
Right.
They should get medals.
Right.
Yeah. Well, we have a friend who's actually he's in the middle of a Camarilla campaign, I believe. I think. Well, he might be doing. Maybe they are incorporating werewolf. Yeti does vampire LARPing, and I have to. It takes every bit of my old cadre-ness to not make fun of it.
And it's horrible because LARPers really are the whipping boys of the fandom.
Well, yeah, between them and furries, but
furries enjoy it.
Yeah, the furries love what they get. But no, the thing is that I've been there. I was there for the thing about going, especially having gone to Gen Con. I was there for the rise of Magic the Gathering. I was there for the rise of the Vampire the Masquerade. I saw the end of Shadowrun. That was
wow.
I mean, I was all of those things. All of these things I was there. I saw. I was like, you know, like witness to history.
You were in the trenches.
And yeah, it's like, and the thing about it is that it's when you look back at how different things are now, and how much better and worse.
Yeah. I think a lot of the things that need to be better are better, and not too many of them are worse.
I still think one of the biggest problems I have with the argument that we have right now, we have this ongoing argument about, everyone should be welcome in fandom. No.
You know what?
No.
Let's pause for a second.
Okay.
And come back to that.
Okay.
I really got pissed.
Okay. Yeah, the last bit. Now, the one thing that it's kind of...
Okay, so
the one thing that...
Well, we're talking about LARPing.
But the things we also talk about the whole concept of we've gotten into this thing where now things are different and they're better and worse.
Right.
And then there's this weird idea keeps popping up in fandom that nobody can be gatekeepers to fandom. And I'm going, no, because the problem is that when you let everyone in, you also there are genuine riffraff.
Yeah.
Right.
People, it's not the minorities, it's not the women. No, it's the friggin' it's the neckbeards, and I don't like using it. But
no one should have to prove their nerdery to be welcome, which I think is more what people mean.
Yeah.
Which is funny because New York Comic Con pretty much does that at this point.
Really?
Like you actually have to create a profile on their website and all this, verify, and it's like,
are you nerd enough to go to this con?
I mean,
yeah,
I'm waiting for them to start rejecting people. It's like, really now?
That'd be hilarious.
You're not. No, but the things.
But yeah, it's like no
how
one
many,
should be.
How many copies
of
X-Men #1 do you own?
Yeah, it's like we only want the elite in fandom.
Yeah,
I'm like,
exactly.
Yeah, that's
It's
bullshit.
silly.
I agree
Bite
with you.
me. It's like,
but yeah, there are. We should be welcoming. No one should be judged for how much of a nerd they are. No one has to be a certain level of nerd to be in there. But that said, when we discover toxic individuals or toxic groups, yes, we should try and eject them.
we should gently
Or make them not welcome. It's
dump
like,
them off,
it's like
dump them off the
people
nearest cliff.
who have actively made themselves known as a bad element should not be welcome.
I mean,
Just for the safety of everybody, really.
And the problem is that we've
Now,
always,
if there's someone who just likes Digimon and nothing else, should they be welcome at any anime convention? Yes, they should.
yes, they should, because then we can probably fix that.
Because that's gateway stuff. But then you get the other ones that the older crowd that are like squatters, the Lunarians. They just kind of sit on this thing, and it's just theirs. They don't want anybody else.
See,
because
that
the other thing with these conventions is
we need to be gatekeeping the gatekeepers.
Right.
We want to gatekeep the gatekeepers.
See, but that's the problem. That's the problem with conventions, and like I said, you run into it with these creative types where it's mine. Because there should be a natural progression where you bring in new fans.
Plus, I think the best thing
hand things off to them.
And you hand
if
things off
someone
because
who's not a geek doesn't associate themselves as a geek, doesn't know a lot about geekdom, but they want to go to a convention, they should absolutely be there.
Right.
And if someone who's a lifelong geek has to give up their tickets, so they should do that, they should hand it to them on a silver platter, because that's the kind of thing. Yes, I know I love this stuff. You are new. You want to explore. Take this golden ticket.
You want to encourage
Go into this world, and I hope you find something amazing.
See, but this is why, in my mind, and you would know better, this is why Lunacon finally hit the wall. Because instead of bringing in those younger fans and grooming them to be the ones that are going to run Lunacon 20 years later.
Eventually all the Lunarians will die, and if the con's not dead by then, it will be.
Yeah, because nobody's going to want to be a Lunarian.
No one's going to have any association with being a Lunarian. There's nobody to want to be affected to it.
But why do you think it kept shrinking? Because you had people that weren't interested in the convention, and if you can't get people interested enough to come to your convention,
you ain't gonna get people.
You're certainly not going to get people to work it.
And the people who were interested, the problem was that
they killed the interest of so many people that may have been interested.
Well, that's what I
even if they still
say,
like the con,
and he could speak to this more than me. But it's like you come with good ideas, and then you get shit on. You're going to take your good ideas somewhere else.
Yes, I love this. I love the idea of this convention. I want to do it. I want absolutely nothing to do with these individuals whatsoever. Right. That's killing the con.
That's the problem. Is that, and this is not. What's funny is that this is not unique to Lunacon at all. I hear about this happening at a lot of other convention groups
to varying different degrees of
every convention has a certain amount of internal strife. It's just natural.
You put a bunch of humans together in a box, it's going to happen.
Group dynamics.
Yeah, it's never going to work perfectly.
Right.
But that goes for anything. That goes.
Group dynamics 101.
That goes for
a good
guys
organization
that travel together in a band don't always get along.
Yeah, it's like a good organization or a good group is one that can survive the happenings of group dynamics and not implode on itself.
Do you get along with everybody you work with?
The problem is, no.
They're lying.
The problem.
Anyone who says they get along with everybody they work with is lying.
Right.
They may be lying to themselves and not you, but they are lying.
But it's all,
yes, and that's the important.
That's the difference.
That's why it works.
because even if you don't necessarily get along, you have that group dynamic of, okay, we have a goal that we need to accomplish here.
And I respect your ability to help in that goal.
And it's that much harder when you're volunteering.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, that's where the incentives come in, because it's like, okay, I got to put up with this bullshit, but at least I'm getting a free room.
Yeah.
At least
that makes a huge
I'm being taken care of.
Oh my God.
And being treated like I'm appreciated.
And Lunacon didn't have any of those
Ted
things,
over here is an asshole.
I had to pay.
But I can avoid him.
Yeah.
Right.
He gets his stuff done. I can say he gets his job well, even if I can't stand the guy.
Right.
But the thing is that what happened is that, Lunacon, I was paying, you would work there, Con, and you'd be paying out of pocket for it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm paying out of pocket, and I get my membership handed back to me, but that's hardly the most expensive part of the process.
No.
The room is what kills you. And the thing is that my year working, I found out so much more about I found out so much of the inner workings, and again, this is definitely going to be...
Yeah, the video itself, we do not have time for that.
The difference with the videos, these videos are very, very freeform. This is very just us chatting and shooting the shit. Whereas those videos, I'm actually going to have a bullet point system.
We'll need it. Make sure we cover everything.
Yeah, I need to make sure...
The Lunacon episodes will probably be some of the most structured ones we do.
Yeah.
Be perfectly honest.
We have a big whiteboard back here.
Yes, I need to work that out. I kind of need to work that shit out of my system, because that was just, that was traumatic.
Yeah, so it won't just be for your entertainment, it's going to be for his mental health.
Yeah, it's therapy for me.
Yeah, but it's also, you know what, too? It also serves a purpose, because it's like, this is what not
to do.
It's an
excellent case study for a lot of the
this is
problems
not what
with
not
fandom.
to do, because, like I said, with the way things progressed as the internet took over, the way it started for us when we started going to conventions, now everything is way different, because look, you can reach people without a massive amount of effort. Back then, it was like paper fucking flyers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And even when I was younger, it's like finding conventions was a challenge.
Yeah.
Not anymore.
Well, listen, the other thing, too, was how did you find conventions back in our day?
Word of mouth.
From going to conventions.
Yeah.
Because they would have the parties at the conventions for the other conventions.
And the thing is,
and all of a sudden, that's how you ended up going, and I'm sure that's how you got into it. It's like,
and that's still a
because
big
I
way
never went
of
to other
finding
conventions, and I know you did.
The thing was that, like how I wound up going to how I knew about Gen Con, how I knew about Kineticon, how I knew about
how you learn about Dragon Con.
How I knew about Dragon Con was it's people sharing their a lot of it was word of mouth, because I mean, as I said, the only reason why we went to Lunacon in the first place was because where's faces Jonathan Klein, I think was his name, was the president of the Sci-Fi Club, and he had the attitude of I'm going to the con. I've got my room. I got
jealous of me.
Yeah, no, I've got my room. Y'all, you scrubs can figure your own way out there. And I remember that.
But you also had Val Sussman involved.
Yeah, and the thing was,
she was the librarian at our school,
who was also
but she was also involved with the convention itself, and so she was kind of the connection to help to make all that.
The funny thing was that she was very supportive in the fact that she wanted us to go, but the thing is, at the time, she couldn't get us hotel rooms or anything like that, because
she didn't really have any pull.
She didn't have
but she did want you to have the experience.
But what's funny was, as I said, we happened to luck out, happened to go that first year.
There was also a lot of liability involved in that, because let's face it, you put a bunch of 16-year-olds in a couple of hotel rooms. You work for the school.
Yeah, as someone who works for the
school
district,
they're drinking and throwing up everywhere.
You don't want to be the
going
person that goes back to for getting an arrangement for that room. Even if it's all above board, you just don't want that.
Yeah, there was a lot of liability there, so I don't blame her for that one bit.
But the thing is that we still wound up going, and we had a great time.
Yeah.
But we also found out, it was the sense of community that is not. It's still there. It's just very different now. Mm-hmm. Because, I mean, granted, you have Facebook, where you have Facebook groups, and you have the people that I talk.
The community is less dependent upon the conventions to house the community.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah, now the conventions are now to literally convene.
Right.
Yeah. Like, it used to be, that's how you found everybody.
Right.
That's where you met
that
everybody.
used to be your gateway into that
culture.
scene.
Now this is actually I think that's the reason why a lot of the cons tend to have especially like the non-structured corporate conventions.
Let me point out a difference here though, because you mentioned like Dragon Con and Gen Con and stuff like that. Those are big conventions. If you're a smaller regional convention, that's the ones that were holding the parties, because you had your regional convention that was in Baltimore. How were you going to get people there? There was no internet. There was no, like, if you were lucky, you had a mailing list where you were actually mailing flyers to people.
That's why.
But
Baltimore used to have
a lot of your exposure was you go to Lunacon and like, okay, room 302, they're having a party for Balticon, and you go and you hang out with these people and you're making new friends, and then this weekend in August is when our convention is, and you're making plans to go to that convention because now you got buddies that are at that convention that work at that convention, and you can also go and work at that convention yourself.
Oops.
Man down.
But yeah, bottle down. But the thing is, so that that's a good perspective of what it was like. A lot of our
the almost wild, wild west world of conventions.
Oh my god, those early days of like we used to. As teenagers, man, I just remember playing Gamma World. That was hilarious.
Oh yeah.
Just because we took it so not seriously.
Oh please! I mean, we did that with Cyberpunk also.
Yeah. Well, Cyberpunk.
But that was. I mean, we were being crazy.
Yeah.
But
we were allowed.
That was what we did. Like that was our fun.
Right.
You know, and now, like I said, it's so different now because there's so much more exposure to everything, but at the same time, you don't necessarily have to interact. Like, it used to be word of mouth, like you said. Like, I got to talk to you, you got to talk to him. Like, now you can just look online and find everything. You don't have to interact with anybody.
Which is a boon,
which is a weird thing. Yeah.
It allows your inner introvert to fester.
Yeah. In a way, yeah. But it's a very different culture now.
Mm-hmm. And
the genre in itself is very different now.
Yeah, we're a different place.
I wouldn't say we're in a worse place or a better place. It's just different.
It's different, and there's a lot more content now than there used to be because there's a lot more avenues now than there used to be. And the internet was kind of the gateway for that. But look at all the genre stuff you have on Netflix and all these other channels, or even just YouTube fan films or whatever.
The fact that a lot of people like to decree the geeky stuff becoming mainstream that's ruining it. It's like, no, that's not ruining it. Is it getting more people who know about it who you may not think should know about it? But yeah, but that's kind of a problem. You shouldn't have that opinion anyway, because everyone should be able to enjoy this. But because it's so popular and so easy, and companies know they can make money of it, we get more of it. It's easier for the stuff we want to get out there.
Right. But the sacrifice of that, and it's funny because we started talking about the parallels between heavy metal and science fiction and like that kind of fandom. It's not necessarily yours anymore because now that it's out there and it's so public, you got Kanye West wearing Testament shirts.
You can't say it's yours. You've also got yours.
You've also got these people that would normally not be involved in science fiction at all, and suddenly they're huge Star Wars fans, or they're fans of like Stranger Things or stuff like that.
So, you can't claim that this is my thing and no one's else.
Yeah, it's not this little insular thing anymore.
I'm also of the opinion it should not be that.
Right.
That does not lead to anything good.
There's pluses and minuses to it. Because you know what? Back in the day, like I said, the kids that used to listen to metal would get the shit kicked out of them. Mm-hmm. Now, like everybody that doesn't listen to metal acts like they listen to metal. You go walk down the street and you see all these people wearing Guns N' Roses shirts or Metallica shirts, and it's like, they never listened to a Metallica record in their life. But that's the way it is, and you get the same way with science fiction stuff. You get the same thing with other types of music and other types of
Is there annoyances that come out of it? Yeah, but overall it's good.
You know what?
It makes it better for us.
Hey, look, if the super casuals will continue giving us money, giving out money so that people can actually make stuff
that's
that'll
the
make us
flip side of it because that income keeps the train rolling.
That's how we get
really
it. That's how we're getting another
anything,
Pacific Rim movie.
Except maybe a few egos.
I mean,
we're getting another Pacific Rim movie.
Hey, listen, I like Pacific Rim.
Exactly.
Yeah, I got exactly what I wanted out of that movie.
It didn't do that well, but then internationally it did well enough that they kept it going.
Exactly. So
you get a lot more of these casuals. The diehards, some people are going to be like,
there's always elitists
get off my Kool-Aid. But That's the way it is. And now with you being able to reach everything, whether it's music or science fiction or other genres or other things, there's more people that get exposed to it and get interested in it. And some of them are going to be in and out, and some of them are going to be diehards, and that's just the way it is.
But it's like that's what it's like. We should be sharing that. This is best when shared.
Right.
And that's generally something that we've.
And
we're getting better.
That is my goal for this channel in general.
Right.
Sharing what we
love.
love.
The sharing and the celebration of everything that we love.
And listen, I have no problem with it. Like, I expose my kids to a lot of stuff, whether it's Star Wars or other types of, Planet of the Apes, things like that. Like
the Marvel movies.
The Marvel stuff. Like, they like some of it, they don't like some of it. Everybody's different, but at least, that gateway is there, and you don't want to sit there and be like, this is mine, you can't have it.
Right.
Because it doesn't work anymore.
It's a gateway there that will help them find friends if it's something they become really interested in.
Right.
It's something they can connect to you on and level and enjoy together, which is a lot of things that kids don't have with parents.
Right. And it goes with all kinds of things, video games.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
I mean, because like my niece, when
all
she's
that content,
cosplayed, my brother has helped her make her costumes and her props because he's a geek just like she is.
Right.
And that's a precious thing to have when you're a kid.
No, but that's the thing. Just like you said before, it's like you want to encourage that. You don't want to shut those people out, because then you end up like Lunicon, where if they 10 years down the line, if you're not seeding that ground, nothing's going to grow
at all.
Exactly.
Period.
And if you turn around and you salt that fucking ground,
and they did,
did
over and over,
then there's going to be nothing left.
But except you wondering what went wrong.
Right, and when you're sitting there like, what happened?
Which is
that's
never
the problem.
Yourself.
That's the problem. But that's what's happened, and I'm sure that's happened with other regional conventions
I'm
too.
Sure.
We're just talking
I'm sure
from our own
Lunicon
perspective.
is not unique in any of this.
Yeah, this is hardly a novel experience.
And that's happened with the convention circuit. That's happened with other kinds of businesses and stuff like that too.
I'm sure after we do your Lunicon episodes, we could just go through the comments and be like, at the end of this, we'll be like, if anyone else has any experiences like this, cons that have imploded or whatever, tell us about it.
Yeah.
Come bring it to us. But I think that will cover it for tonight.
Yes, we should cut off there. We're running a little long, so I'm glad y'all stayed with us.
We could be here all night.
Yeah, we could be
here all weekend.
Live streaming well into the new year at this rate.
Let's have a 6-hour discussion.
We could do that. We could do that. I would be game to doing that sometime. But for now, see y'all later. This has been Talking Hats. I'm Monty Squiggs.
I'm Old Man Wolfy. And this is good old Muttley.
Good old Muttley. He'll be back again, I'm sure.
We're gonna get back
on the show. I have plans for this one.
Oh boy.
Those tears, right?
Not talking about the last generation.